The smell of antiseptic filled the room. Machines beeped wildly. A woman's faint cry broke the silence. "Abigail, stay with me." Jay's voice trembled as he held her hand, his knuckles pale from the pressure. Her face was drenched in sweat, her body weak, her hospital gown stained with blood. "I'm sorry. The baby?" she whispered, her voice fading, eyes rolling back. "Don't you dare close your eyes." Jay barked, but it wasn't anger. It was fear. The kind of fear that grips a man who has seen death too many times and can't bear to lose one more soul. Especially her. Doctors rushed in, pulling him back, shouting orders in Korean. The hallway blurred. His bodyguards stood frozen by the door, their eyes filled with shock. They had seen their boss beat men bloody, but never seen him cry, until that moment. He dropped to his knees in the corridor, blood still on his hands, whispering, "Please, not her. Take me instead." Then everything went quiet. 3 months earlier, snow was falling softly over Seoul, painting the streets white and calm. Inside a small apartment, Abigail Nguyen sat by her window, wrapped in a brown blanket, watching the city lights blink below. Her laptop screen glowed, showing a paused Zoom meeting and a folder of unfinished designs. She was 7 months pregnant, alone. Her phone buzzed, a reminder from her health app. "Drink water. Baby needs you strong." She chuckled faintly, rubbing her round belly. "I know, little one. I'm trying." That night had been long. Her feet were swollen. She missed home, her mother's laughter, Nairobi's sun, and her old life before Daniel. Daniel Miho. The name still stung. The man who once kissed her forehead every morning now pretended she didn't exist. He had left the moment she told him she was pregnant. His mother had called her a mistake. His father had offered her money to go back to Africa quietly. She refused, so she stayed, worked remotely, survived on savings, and talked to her unborn child as if it were her only friend. That evening, she felt a strange urge, a mix of sadness and courage. She put on a soft pink robe, styled her curly hair, and stood in front of the mirror. Her bump was round and beautiful. She smiled through tears. "You and I, baby, we're doing fine," she whispered. She took her phone and snapped a photo, simple but powerful. Her hand rested on her belly, her eyes soft and hopeful. She typed a message. "I know you miss me, Danny. I just wish you could see how beautiful this bump has become. I don't want money or pity. I only wish you were here to help with groceries and baby things. We still love you." She hit send, but didn't notice her fingers had slipped one digit wrong in his number. Miles away, in a penthouse overlooking the Han River, Han Jae-min sat in his office. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his tattooed arm resting against the window. A glass of whiskey untouched beside him. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He frowned. Then read the message. The picture loaded slowly, a glowing black woman, heavily pregnant, smiling softly despite the sadness in her eyes. His breath caught. For a moment the world stilled. He reread the text, each word piercing deeper than any bullet ever had. "I don't want money. I only wish you were here." Jay had spent years trying to have a child. Doctors had called it impossible. His ex-fiancée had left him, whispering that he was less of a man. But this woman, this stranger, was carrying what he had always prayed for. And someone had dared to leave her? He felt something he hadn't felt in years. Remorse. That night, he couldn't sleep. Her image haunted him, her strength, her vulnerability, that soft glow of motherhood. He called his hacker. "Find out who she is, where she lives." "Boss, why? Just do it." The next morning, Abigail woke to a knock. A soft one at first, then firmer. She tightened her robe and opened the door halfway. There stood a tall Korean man in a black coat, holding a massive bouquet of red roses, the kind that looked like they belonged in movies. Behind him, 2 men in suits carried bags, baby essentials, groceries, even diapers. Her jaw dropped. "Excuse me, are you at the wrong door?" Jay smiled faintly. "No, Miss Abigail. I think fate sent me to the right one." Her eyes widened. "How do you know my name?" He lowered the flowers. "You sent me a message last night. It wasn't meant for me, but I think it was meant for me." Her heart skipped. What do you mean? That message was for... I know, he interrupted gently. For someone who didn't deserve it. She took a step back, hand on her belly. Who are you? He looked at her with soft, piercing eyes. Someone who knows what it's like to want a child so bad. It hurts. Silence. Her throat tightened. He handed her the flowers. For your courage. And for the little one. Something inside her cracked. Not from fear, but from the warmth she hadn't felt in months. She let out a shaky laugh. Are you sure you're not crazy? He smiled slightly. A little, but only for people who deserve kindness. That was the day their story began. The day a wrong number became the right destiny. Neither of them knew how much love and pain that single message would bring. Or that the man standing at her door was the same one who would one day carry her bleeding body through a hospital corridor, begging heaven not to take her away. Abigail kept replaying the moment at her door. A stranger. Roses. Groceries worth a month's rent. And that mysterious calm in his voice. For 2 days she convinced herself he'd made a mistake and would never return. But on the third morning, just as snowflakes began to drift past her window, the doorbell rang again. When she opened it, there he was, Han Jae-min, holding a thermos. I didn't know what you eat for breakfast, so I brought soup. My sister says it's good for pregnant women. You came again? She asked, half amused, half alarmed. He nodded. You looked lonely the other night. I'm fine, she lied. People who are fine don't stare at their phones for 10 minutes before sending one text, he said gently. It was the first time someone had looked right through her armor since Daniel left. She tried to close the door. He caught it, not forcefully, just enough to make her pause. 5 minutes, he said. If you don't like my soup, I'll leave forever. The smell of seaweed and beef filled the apartment. She tasted a spoonful and gasped. Did you make this? He shrugged. I ordered it and told the chef not to use too much salt. She laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in months. You're strange. So they tell me. They sat across from each other, the heater humming softly. Jay studied the little trinkets on her shelf. A wooden giraffe, a Kenyan flag keychain, a photo of her smiling parents. You miss home, he said. I miss being understood, she whispered. He didn't respond. He just watched her, memorizing the way she held her belly, the way her eyes dimmed when she mentioned loneliness. When he finally stood to leave, he placed a small envelope on the table. For tomorrow's groceries, he said. She pushed it back. No, I'm not your charity. It's not charity, he replied quietly. It's peace of mind. Peace of mind for who? For me. He kept coming back. Once with baby lotion. Another time with a heater because hers made funny noises. Then with a tiny stuffed bear that said Sarangi when squeezed. Sometimes he stayed 10 minutes, sometimes an hour. He never touched her. Never crossed a line. Only talked. About Seoul's hidden cafes. About his sister Unseo. About how he used to dream of a family dinner table that never existed. Abigail found herself waiting for his knock. One afternoon, she teased him. You act like a husband who lost his way home. He smiled. Maybe I found the right home by accident. Her cheeks warmed. You're impossible. Only when something matters. Unseo warned him. Appa, this woman isn't part of your world. Don't ruin her peace. Jay looked at his reflection. My world is already ruined. Maybe she's the only pure thing left. But trouble never stayed quiet around him. His men whispered about rival gangs watching the building. Mr. Kim Dail suggested he end the visits. Boss, people talk. They say you're distracted. Jay's eyes hardened. Let them talk. That weekend, Abigail insisted on doing her own shopping. Jay followed like a bodyguard, carrying all the bags. When she tripped over a box of cabbages, he caught her arm. The market women giggled. Your husband is very handsome, one said in Korean. Abigail blushed. He's not. I mean, Jay cut in, smiling. She means I am. The crowd laughed. She smacked his arm playfully and he winked. That small moment, ordinary, silly, made her feel alive again. That night, rain poured hard. A power cut swallowed the apartment in darkness. She lit a candle, listening to thunder rumble like distant drums. A soft knock came. You shouldn't be out in this weather, she said, opening the door. I wanted to make sure you weren't scared. Of thunder? I've survived worse. He stepped inside, hair wet, eyes gleaming in the flicker of light. Still, no one should be alone in storms. They sat on the couch listening to the rain hammer the windows. After a while she whispered, "Why do you care so much? You don't even know me." He looked at her, his voice barely a murmur. "I know how it feels to want a family so badly it breaks you. I can't have children, Abigail. I've tried. For years." Her breath caught. "You can't." He shook his head. "Doctors confirmed it. But when you sent that photo," it felt like hope knocking again. Silence wrapped the room. Then she reached for his hand. "Maybe hope didn't knock. Maybe it sent you to deliver it." He smiled, eyes misty. "Then let me stay until it's delivered safely." Days turned into weeks. Their friendship slid quietly into something deeper. He kissed her forehead when he left. She teased him about his serious face. He talked to her belly, calling the baby little miracle. At night, she would lie in bed replaying his voice, the way it softened when he spoke to her. And Jay, in his cold penthouse, found himself smiling at the smallest things. The sound of her laugh in his memory, the smell of her apartment still on his coat. He had handled diamonds, weapons, and deals worth millions. But nothing had ever felt as precious as hearing her say, "Good night, Jay." Then one afternoon, as Abigail scrolled through her emails, a new message flashed on her screen. From Daniel Miho. "I saw your picture online. You look happy. Are you still in Seoul?" Her fingers trembled. The man who abandoned her was back, and fate once again was preparing its storm. Abigail stared at the screen, still rereading the text. From Daniel Miho. Her breath caught somewhere between her ribs and her throat. The cursor blinked beneath his message like a heartbeat she didn't want to hear. "I saw your picture online. You look happy. Are you still in Seoul?" For a long minute she just watched the words, not answering, not deleting, just remembering. The way he used to hold her hand in crowded trains. The night he promised, "You'll never be alone here." Promises melt fast in cold cities. A knock on the door broke the trance. Jay, of course. He came every evening now, always at the same time, as though his heart had learned her schedule. She hurried to close the laptop before opening the door. He stood there, coat dusted with snow, holding paper cups of coffee. "Double mocha," he said. "You said the baby likes sugar." She smiled faintly. "You're learning." "Slowly," he replied. "Can I come in?" He didn't notice her shaking hands, but he noticed everything else. The tension in her shoulders, the way she avoided his eyes. They sat by the heater, sipping coffee. Steam curled between them like a veil. "You're quiet today," he said. "I'm just tired." "You're lying," he answered softly. "You bite your lip when you lie." She laughed once, too quickly. "You observe too much." "I care too much," he corrected. That simple sentence undid her. She put the cup down, covering her face. "He wrote to me. Daniel." His tone darkened, the name dropping like ice. She nodded. "What did he say?" "That he saw me. That I look happy." Jay's jaw tightened. "He's trying to come back. I don't know what he wants." He reached across the table, took her trembling fingers, and pressed them between his palms. "Do you want him back?" Her eyes filled. "No. But part of me still hurts that he could just leave." Jay didn't speak. He simply pulled her hand closer until her palm rested over his chest. His heartbeat was steady and strong beneath the fabric. "Then let that part heal here," he murmured, "with someone who won't leave." That night, when she walked him to the door, headlights flashed on the street below. Too bright, lingering too long. A black sedan idled at the corner. Jay noticed instantly. His expression changed, hard edges returning, the warmth replaced by the man the city whispered about. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me or my sister." "Why? What's happening?" "Nothing," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just habit." When she closed the door, he pulled out his phone. "Dale, tail the car parked near Abigail's building," he ordered. "Boss, could be Miho's men." Or worse, Jay replied. Find out. 2 days later, Daniel appeared in person. Abigail was leaving the grocery store when she heard a voice behind her. Abby. She turned and froze. Daniel stood there, hands buried in his pockets, guilt written all over his face. He looked thinner, older, yet his eyes still had that charm that once convinced her the world was safe. What are you doing here? She asked. I've been trying to reach you. I made a mistake. She almost laughed. A mistake? You left me when I needed you the most. I was scared, he said quickly. My parents. Your parents didn't love me, she cut in. You didn't defend me. You walked away. He stepped closer. Let me make it right. We can raise the baby together. Something inside her wanted to believe him, but another part remembered the man who'd been at her door every evening with soup, laughter, and warmth. Go home, Daniel, she said firmly. It's too late. When she turned to leave, he grabbed her arm. That's when Jay's black car pulled up beside them. The door opened, and Jay stepped out wearing his long coat, calm but dangerous. Let go of her, he said quietly. Daniel froze. Who are you? The man you should have been, Jay replied. People around the store stopped to stare. Jay didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. His presence was enough. Daniel released her arm instantly. Abigail, Jay said, holding out his hand. Come. She hesitated only a second before taking it. As he guided her into the car, Daniel shouted after them, You think she'll love someone like you? Jay turned slightly, eyes cold. She already does. Inside the car, silence hung heavy. Jay's hands gripped the steering wheel. His knuckles were white. You shouldn't have had to see that, he said finally. You came just in time, she whispered. He exhaled slowly. I almost lost control. She studied his profile, the calm mask, the faint scar near his temple, the storm beneath his eyes. Who are you, really, Jay? He didn't answer at first. The city lights flickered across his face like shifting truths. Finally, he said, A man who's done many things he isn't proud of. But I'll never hurt you. She believed him, though she couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the way he said never, not as a promise, but as a vow carved into his soul. Back at her apartment, she thanked him. You didn't have to protect me. I did, he said. I wanted to. He turned to leave, then paused. You asked who I am. The truth is, people call me a lot of names. Some fear me, some respect me. But for you, just call me Jay. Before she could reply, he brushed his thumb lightly across her cheek, wiping away a tear she hadn't noticed. Don't waste tears on the past, he whispered. You have a future growing inside you. Then he left, footsteps fading down the corridor. Abigail closed the door, heart racing. She leaned against it, hand over her belly. For the first time, the baby kicked. She smiled through her tears. See that? Your guardian angel has tattoos. The next morning, Abigail received a call. Hello, Abigail? I'm Uncio, Jay's sister. Can we meet? They met at a small cafe near the hospital. Uncio was elegant and soft-spoken, but her eyes were sharp. My brother cares for you, she said. I can see that. Abigail smiled shyly. He's been kind. That kindness comes with danger, Uncio warned. He has enemies. If they know about you, I can handle myself. Uncio shook her head. You don't understand. He's not a businessman, Abigail. He leads people you read about in the papers. People who disappear. The words struck her like cold wind. Still, part of her refused to believe the man who carried groceries and baby lotion could also lead shadows. When she returned home that evening, Jay was waiting at her door with flowers again. Red roses, fresh and trembling with raindrops. She looked at him, torn between fear and affection. Who are you really, Jay? She asked again. He met her gaze. The man who'll do anything to keep you safe. Later that night, thunder rolled once more across Seoul. He stayed until she fell asleep on the couch, her head resting on his shoulder. He whispered to the sleeping woman and the life inside her, I couldn't give life to anyone, but maybe fate sent me to protect this one. Outside, the same black sedan from before idled in the shadows. Inside sat Daniel, eyes burning with jealousy as he watched the lights in Abigail's apartment. He wasn't leaving again. Not quietly. And somewhere far below that calm surface, Jay's enemies were also watching. The city was holding its breath. Abigail couldn't sleep that night. Even though her body begged for rest, her heart kept replaying the way Jay had looked at her. Not like a stranger, not like a man doing charity, but like someone who had been waiting his whole life for her to appear. The following morning, she found herself in front of her closet, wondering what to wear. It wasn't a date. Couldn't be. Yet she caught herself brushing her curls twice and applying lip balm before stepping out. She laughed at her reflection. "You're pregnant, Abby? Not on Tinder," she murmured, shaking her head. Outside, Seoul was calm. A silver morning after a light rain. The city smelled like wet earth and coffee. She tucked her hands under her coat and walked toward the little cafe Jay had mentioned. When she arrived, he was already there. Sitting by the window, a cup of green tea untouched, his sharp eyes scanning through the glass like he'd been waiting for her for hours. "Abigail," he said softly when she entered. "I was starting to think you changed your mind." "I almost did," she replied, slipping into the seat opposite him. "It's not every day a strange man tracks you down with groceries." He smiled faintly. "You make it sound worse than it is." "It is worse," she teased. "But I'll forgive you if the breakfast is good." He chuckled, signaling the waiter. "Deal." They ordered pancakes and omelets. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy with curiosity. Jay's gaze softened as he looked at her belly. "How far along are you?" he asked. "Almost 6 months." He nodded slowly, fingers tracing the rim of his cup. "Does it hurt to be alone?" The question caught her off guard. She looked at him, this strong, quiet man with a face that carried too much sadness for his age. "Some days more than others," she said truthfully. "But I'm learning to live one heartbeat at a time." Jay looked down. "You're strong." "I have to be." He looked back up. "No, you choose to be." That made her blush. Nobody had ever said it like that. For the rest of breakfast, he made her laugh. Something she hadn't done in months. He had a dry sense of humor, and his attempt to pronounce her Swahili name in a Korean accent had her giggling until tears formed. By the time they finished eating, she didn't want to leave. As they stepped outside, Jay's phone rang. His expression shifted instantly. The warmth in his eyes froze into something cold and distant. "Give me a minute," he murmured, stepping aside. Abigail waited, pretending to scroll through her phone, but his voice grew sharp, all Korean, fast and commanding. She didn't understand the words, but she could feel the tension. When he hung up, he turned to her with a polite smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Everything okay?" she asked carefully. "Yes," he said. "Just business." She nodded, though she wasn't convinced. That evening, he drove her home again. She thanked him at the door, but before she could go in, he spoke quietly. "Abigail, would you mind if I checked on you sometimes? Not to interfere, just to know you're safe." Her heart squeezed. "You don't have to do that." "I know," he said simply. "But I want to." She smiled shyly. "Then I guess I'll allow it." He bowed slightly, a habit she found endearing, and left. Later that night, Abigail lay in bed, her hand on her belly. "What do you think, baby?" she whispered. "Should we trust him?" The baby kicked once, softly. She smiled. "Yeah, me too." But Jay didn't go home. He drove instead to a hidden warehouse on the outskirts of Seoul, where men in black suits greeted him with deep bows. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and fear. A man knelt before him, trembling. "Boss, we didn't know she was connected to you." "She isn't," Jay said coolly, removing his coat. "But she will be. And anyone who touches her, touches me." The man swallowed hard. Jay's voice dropped to a whisper. "Find the one who leaked her address. I want him alive." Then he walked out, his face unreadable. When he stepped back into his car, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Abigail. "Thank you for today. I laughed for the first time in months." "Sleep well, Mr. Mystery." He smiled faintly. For a brief moment, the darkness in him lifted. He texted back, "As long as you're smiling, I will." But deep down, Jay knew his world wasn't built for softness, and the more time he spent with her, the closer danger came crawling. And somewhere in Seoul, a shadow already knew her name. The evening breeze in Seoul carried the faint scent of jasmine and roasted chestnuts. Abigail sat on the small balcony of Jay's penthouse, her hands resting lightly on her belly as city lights blinked below like fallen stars. She'd been there for an hour, watching the sky shift from silver to indigo while Jay moved quietly in the kitchen behind her. He'd insisted she come over for dinner. She had resisted at first, saying she didn't want to intrude, but Jay had said in his low, calm voice, "You're never an intrusion, Abigail. You're a reason to come home early." Now, as the aroma of garlic, soy, and sesame filled the air, she smiled. It was still odd to imagine the man who commanded fear in others, the same man who had once stormed into her apartment with roses and groceries, standing barefoot in a kitchen, stirring soup with quiet patience. "You cook?" she called teasingly. He turned, one eyebrow raised. "I lead an empire. I can handle a saucepan." She laughed softly. "Empire or not, if it burns, I'm ordering ramen. I'll take that challenge." When he brought the food out, Abigail's eyes widened. "This looks fancy." "Simple," he corrected, placing the bowls down. "I used to cook for my mother when she was ill. It helps me think." That last line made her heart ache a little. She had noticed how rarely he spoke of family, and when he did, it was always with a quiet ache that lingered in his eyes. They ate slowly, talking about small things, her work, his favorite places in Busan, how different Korean winters felt compared to the warmth of Kenya. At some point, he looked up from his food and said softly, "You've changed this place." "How?" "It was always quiet before," he said. "Now it feels alive." Abigail looked down, her cheeks warming. "You say things that could make a woman fall too fast, Jay. Then maybe she should stop falling and just stay," he replied. Her breath caught for a second. She looked up. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with sincerity. The silence stretched. Then, to ease the tension, she said lightly, "You know, if you keep saying things like that, you'll scare me." He smiled faintly. "I'm already scared, Abigail. Every time I look at you, I wonder what I'll do if you ever walk away." Her chest tightened. She hadn't realized how deeply he felt this, or how much she had started to feel the same. After dinner, they stood together by the balcony railing. Below them, Seoul shimmered with moving lights. Taxis, street lamps, people living their fast lives. Abigail leaned her head slightly toward him. "You still think about it a lot, don't you?" she asked softly. He didn't pretend not to understand. "Infertility," she nodded. He exhaled slowly, his hands tightening around the railing. "It's a kind of silence you learn to live with, like a room that will never have sound again." Her heart broke for him. "You don't have to live in that silence forever." He turned to her. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," she said. "But I've learned something since I got pregnant. Sometimes, love doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you need." He studied her for a moment. "And what do I need, Abigail?" She smiled softly. "Someone who sees the man before the wound." Jay's throat moved as he swallowed hard. For the first time, he looked vulnerable. Not the powerful man everyone feared, but a soul who'd spent too long hiding behind walls. He took a hesitant step closer. "You're dangerous, you know that?" "Me?" She laughed softly. "I'm just hungry and hormonal." "No," he said, his voice a whisper now. "You make me want to believe again." Before she could answer, his hand brushed her cheek, gentle, testing. She didn't pull away. The air between them changed. No more fear, no more past, just the soft hum of something real growing. He kissed her, slow, uncertain at first, then deeper, as if he'd forgotten what warmth felt like and was learning again. Abigail's heart raced. It wasn't about lust. It was connection, pure and fragile. When they finally broke apart, she rested her forehead on his chest, smiling faintly. "You kiss like someone who thinks too much." "I've had a lot of practice being careful," he murmured. "Maybe it's time you stop being careful." He chuckled quietly, wrapping his arms around her. "You're going to ruin me, Abigail. Then I'll ruin you gently." They stayed like that for a long time, swaying softly to the city's rhythm. Everything felt right. Too right. Then Jay's phone buzzed. He ignored it at first, but it buzzed again. When he glanced at the screen, his expression darkened instantly. Abigail noticed. Bad news. He hesitated, then slipped the phone into his pocket. Just business. But when she turned away, he quickly opened the message again. A blurred photo of him and Abigail on the balcony, taken from a distance. Beneath it, a single line. You're getting too comfortable, boss. Jay's jaw tightened. Whoever sent that message wasn't just watching, they were close. He turned to look at Abigail, who was smiling softly, one hand on her belly, humming a tune from home. He whispered under his breath, "No one touches her." That night, while she fell asleep on his couch, he made quiet calls to his men. Orders, warnings, plans. The world she didn't know still moved in shadows, and he'd do anything to keep it from reaching her. Because for the first time in years, Jay felt something like peace. And that peace had a name, Abigail.
Hello besties, love came knocking, but can they survive what's next? Don't miss episode 2. Kindly like, subscribe and share.